A book made it through the fires in Spain in the 1500s. Inside, Maya writers drew a huge flood that wiped out everything. Water coming out of a snake's mouth, gods causing chaos. There was a time when no one knew what it meant. Then 2012 came along, and everyone got scared. But nothing took place. They now say that we got the date wrong. The real forecast is about a different time. They found references to facing our reflection in a big wake-up call. 2025 keeps coming up as the year. This time, the sky's signs fit what the Maya wrote. Before you can understand Maya predictions, you need to know how they kept track of time. They used more than one calendar. They used 4, and each one was used for a different thing. The Tzolk'in was the name of the first one. It worked every 260 days. That may seem like a random thing to do, but the Maya saw it as holy. They put together 20 different names for days and the numbers 1 through 13. This made a pattern of days that affected ceremonies, rituals, and even a person's future. This calendar would help parents decide what to name their kids. Each day meant something different. Your whole life could change if you were born on the wrong one. Then the stove came. We knew more about this one today. It went with the sun. There were 18 months, and each one had 20 days. That gave them 300 days. Then at the end of the year they added 5 more days, which they called Wyeb, but no one used them. People were afraid of them. People didn't go anywhere, stayed home, or kept their big plans because they thought it was a bad day and anything could go wrong. But Maya divination wasn't just based on personal dates. They put them together. They called it a calendar round when the 260-day Tzolk'in and the 365-day Hab matched up. This one-of-a-kind mix happened just once every 52 years. It helped priests keep track of important events, like eclipses, the changing of the seasons, or holy events. They used it to guess what would happen without ever making a horoscope. That wasn't enough for the Maya though. They had to write down the really important dates. Making, destroying, and starting over. That's why the long count calendar was needed. It was made to last for a very long time. It began with Kayan, the smallest measure, which was 1 day. Then Banal came. 1 ton, which was 20 days, then 3 tons, each with 360 days, 700 days, and 14,000 days. That's almost 400 years. But here's the catch. The Maya didn't see time as a straight line, it looked like a circle to them. Every end was just the start of something new. There was nothing terrible about the end of a back ton. A new era began. In 2012, that's what most people got wrong. They believed the Maya told them about the end of the world. But what they saw was just a restart. A time when one big cycle stops and a new one starts. The 819-day calendar was one of the most mysterious things about the Maya civilization that scientists have been trying to figure out for more than 100 years. It seemed like an odd number that had nothing to do with anything. Things changed in 2023, though. After a lot of work, anthropologists John Linden and Victoria Bricker finally got it. The answer was right there in front of them. You need to look at more than a few years to understand the calendar. You had to watch it 20 times in a row. That's almost 45 years. When they did, something amazing took place. All of a sudden the calendar matched up with how the planets were moving. All of them can be seen with the naked eye. Every 819-day period, Mercury lined up with it. Every 5th time around, Venus lined up. Saturn every 6 months. Jupiter every 19th. And every 20th, Mars, the farthest planet that can be seen, lined up. It wasn't just a calendar, it was a big plan. The Maya could keep track of planets and even guess where they would be hundreds of years from now. It used to look like myth, but it was really just advanced science. The things they said were predictions weren't magical. They were math. But that was only the start. Many of the things we know about the Maya today come from a few books that were almost destroyed. In the 1500s, the Spanish burned almost everything. But 4 books, called codices, were saved. They were not stories. They were real records, filled with numbers, cycles, and sky maps. It was written on bark paper with natural ink. This one is called the Dresden Codex, and it is the most full. It was written sometime between 1200 and 1250. There are tables inside that show when the sun and moon will eclipse. It keeps a very close eye on Venus's 584-day period. In fact, it makes hints at storms and cosmic restarts. Lots of experts think those are stories about how the world was made, not dire predictions. The Paris Codex, on the other hand, was made between 1450 and 1500. It tells about something called Cthulhu predictions. What they said wasn't crazy. They were tied to 13 blocks of time, with 7,200 days between each one. Over the course of 256 years, they did everything. Werner Naum, a researcher, showed that all of these predictions were based on real events in history. Again, it's not magic. The stars and seasons are just telling us about events. The Madrid Codex, the third one, was more useful. It was also made around the 1400s and told people when to do rituals, work, and hold events each day. It helped people plan their work around nature. Was like a guidebook for daily life. It is the oldest of all of them. It is called the Grolier Codex, or the Mexico Codex. People thought it was fake for a long time, but tests done in 2018 showed that the ink and bark were from 10.2, 2121, C21, HP 234 AD. It is the oldest Maya book that we know of. It was only thinking about Venus inside, where it would appear, when it would go away, and what that meant. They looked up at the stars with such a strong desire that it changed everything in their world for more than 1,000 years. They lived in cities like Copan, Tikal, and Palanca from 250 to 900. These cities were more than just temples and palaces. They were places to look up. They didn't just have crowns on their heads. They looked at the stars. They didn't use calendars and prophecies to tell stories. They used them to run empires and choose when to go to war. Timed everything. The skies were the guide for every war, celebration, and building project. The king said that the gods gave them strength. What made it all possible, though, was math, science, and a deep sense of time. New DNA studies show that these cities have been stable for hundreds of years, which is a very unusual event. Their plan really did work. They weren't predicting disasters at random. They relied on prophecies to get through real changes in the world and government. Things changed around the year 900 AD, though. The big cities became empty. No one knows the reason for it. The Maya didn't go away, though. They changed. They kept their holy knowledge living through stories and writing in the highlands of Guatemala and the Yucatan. The most well-known of these are Chilambalem's books. It wasn't just history books. Myth and fact were mixed together, as well as astronomy and memory. They weren't afraid that time would end. They thought in circles. Things that are sent out will come back around. They were right too. The Maya writers of these later texts predicted something scary. The invasion by people from other countries across the sea. The Spanish weren't named, but there were hints. Strangers with white skin, metal weapons, strange animals, and the end of an era. At the time it didn't make sense, but it was true. In 1697, the last note of the promise was struck. They fought Not Petén, the last free Maya country, which was led by the Itza. Snake Star, their king, had seen it coming. Scholars like David Stewart say that he thought his defeat would mean the end of one age on the calendar, and the beginning of a new one. He did not think that his defeat would mean death. That's exactly what took place. Spain took over the city on March 13, 1697. The Maya didn't find it strange. They had known for a long time that they would win. The end of the world wasn't written on their chart. It said that things would change for them. It did happen. There were, however, more to what we call prophecies than just easy statements. They were echoes of cycles with many levels of meaning that linked kings to the universe. A case from the 7th century is one of the most confused ones. Maya writers in what is now Tabasco, Mexico, carved something strange into a stone monument in the year 6169. This monument is now known as Monument 6 from Tortuguero. The 13th Baktun will be finished, and it will happen. A seeing. It's the show of Balonoktika, in a big investiture. You might not be familiar with that last name, Balonoktika. This Maya god was very obscure. He was connected to making things and war, and especially to the end of time cycles. He is shown with ropes and bags of incense, which are signs of sacrifices or gifts. The Maya didn't think it was scary when Balonokte showed up during a calendar change. It was planned. It meant that the gears of space were turning again. There was a big end to one thing, and the start of another.
But this isn't really a story about destruction. It has to do with power. A lot of people think the statue wasn't even about the end of the world. Instead, it most likely helped Alamajah make himself look more powerful. He connected his rule to a very long period of time. This is like a king today saying, "I did this right before the millennium." He's not telling people about the end of the world. He is cocky. That's how the Maya did things. They used times to give meaning, not to say bad things would happen. Even so, even though it happened hundreds of years ago, people today still totally misunderstand it. People all over the world started to worry as 2012 got near. There were so many books that they fell off the shelves. Documentaries kept coming on. Websites screamed, "Be careful." People said that the Maya knew that the world would end. Hollywood joined in as well. Fear was used to make over $700 million for the movie 2012. However, the real Maya experts were amazed. They said that there was no Maya writing that said the world would end. Not even close. Stephen Houston, an epigrapher, was one of the most important speakers. It was brought up again that Maya writings often talked about times in the future just to compare them to the present. It wasn't a prediction, it was poetry. In the same way, what we do now will mean 1,000 years from now. The thing there is not a threat, it's a mirror. The message was made clear even by the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which has a piece of the Tortuguero sculpture. They said that the scribes were honoring a historical event by connecting it to a cosmic date. For example, they wrote, "Our king did this right before the new year. But the harm was already done." People got hooked on the 2012 lie and wouldn't let go. It became one of the most popular end-of-the-world stories of our time, along with U2K and Nostradamus. All of this was based on some old writings that were never meant to scare anyone. The Maya were already thinking about things that would happen in the far future when they lived in Palenque in the 8th century. Palenque is in what is now Chiapas, Mexico. Strange carvings were made in stone on the western wall of the Temple of the Inscriptions. They wrote down that King Kianik Pakal was born in 603 CE and crowned in 615 CE. That alone was very good record keeping. They didn't stop there though. The writing then added October 1110, 5.8, which is known as a distance number. These lines may just look like dots and dashes to us, but to the Maya they meant something very important. It was a list of days. After some math, it leads to October 21st, 4772 CE, which is more than 4,000 years from now. Yes, 4772. Just to give you an idea, this date in the future is farther away from now than the Maya were from the birth of Christ. Still, they left a clear word on that long ago day. A party will be held to honor King Pakal's rule. It can't be or might be, it says that there will be. It wasn't just a fancy word for forever. What they said was very brave. The Maya said that Pakal's rule and the heavenly order he was a part of would still be important many years from now. They didn't think of time as ending, instead they saw it as going around and around. It would have been 80 full calendar rounds since Pakal became king by that faraway year. That's 80 times through the course of a lifetime. This is important now because it changes how we think about the Maya calendar. In 2012, a lot of people were scared because they thought the Maya said the world would end when the 13th Bakatan cycle ended. The Maya, on the other hand, certainly didn't think that was the end. In fact, this writing shows the exact opposite. For the Maya, time went on forever. There was still life after the year 4772. It was just one more part. A party just waiting to happen. They didn't fear that moment, instead they welcomed it. Scholars today use this Palenque prophecy to disprove the idea that the Maya knew what would happen on the end of the world. Their records don't show any fear or worry. Instead, they show a quiet faith that the world would still be around. The calendar would keep going, and the memory of their kings would still be important. A long time after they were gone. There is a huge stone sculpture in the jungle of Quintana Roo, Mexico, that tells a story that is almost too big for people to understand. Stela is its name, and the old Maya built it in the city of Coba around the year 800 CE. At first glance, it looks like just a rough piece of stone, but it has one of the most mysterious words ever written by any culture. It's not just a book. The time on this cosmic clock is longer than anything we can imagine. The Maya were crazy about time. They thought it was real, it happened over and over, and it linked everything together. The writing on this statue, on the other hand, goes way beyond that interest. The date it keeps track of is so huge that modern scientists had to write it in exponential form. Not just once or twice, the writing starts with the number 13. The number 13 is written 19 times, and then the number 0.000.040 is added at the end. Note that this is not a normal calendar. As Maya scholar Linda Schilla put it, it's like a cosmic clock. Think about a car's miles counter. It goes back to 0 every time it hits 9. The next number goes up. That's what the Maya did to pass the time. One thing is that this odometer does more than just count years and centuries. There are a huge number of years in it. Scientists tried to figure out what this date meant in the present day. When those 13s were used to keep track of time, they would find that the date was about 28 years from now. What a number. It has 28 zeros. It's thought that the world is about 13.8 billion years old. To give you an idea, 2 quintillion times longer than that, according to the Koba monument. No bad things were said in this prophecy. It wasn't like that. The Maya didn't say that the world would end. They said that time never stops. It goes around, and it goes on forever, past anything we could ever see. People got scared about 2012 because they thought the Maya calendar meant the end of the world. But they missed the whole point. The Maya people of the past weren't counting down to their death. They were showing that time has no end, and that the universe itself goes back and forth in time, into places that not even the gods could fully control. The Kobus Dila wasn't meant to be scary. It was meant to make us feel small. It made people think that we are a part of something so big and endless that our little moment in time is but a blink. An interesting source is a book called the Dresden Codex that was written between the 13th and 15th centuries. It's not a storybook or a history book. It's kind of like a cosmic set of rules. Painting on bark paper, it has astronomy charts, almanacs, and traditions that are meant to make life fit with the world. On page 74 there is a shocking picture. A huge water snake lets out a flood from the sky. It looks like a god named Chak is destroying the world with lightning. Everything is getting too wet. People today think that this picture shows the Maya predicting the end of the world. In 2012 this scene was seen as proof all over the world that the end of the world was near. It looked like a reset from space. It was clear why. The picture shows confusion, water falling from the sky, and images of gods wiping the slate clean. But let me tell you the truth. There is no future date in the scene. There is no time limit or clock. It's more of a warning wrapped in a story. Maya experts say it probably had something to do with their stories about how the world was made, where floods often mean the end of one world and the beginning of another. Maya people think that the world does more than just move forward. It stays the same. Over and over things die and come back to life. And while the Dresden Codex has some of the most exact Venus and eclipse tables ever made, it doesn't actually tell us what will happen in the world. The flood image may look like the end of the world, but for Maya priests, it was probably a sign they used in ceremonies to read omens, not a sign that the end of the world was coming. Even so, people keep projecting their fears onto it, turning old knowledge into modern worry. Let's go to the 1600s and 1700s. The Spanish had come and started to colonize, and Maya scribes were doing their best to keep what they could alive. That's when the Chilambalam books showed up. These were handwritten records that were put together from older stories told orally, and they held something even stranger. True predictions. People thought that a Chilam could speak for the gods and was a prophet. These books wrote down dreams that were based on katuns, which are 20-year times in the Maya calendar. Every katun had their own trait, a list of possible things to happen. Maya historians also noticed that some katans saw the same events happen over and over again. As time went on, they kept track of what happened during each one, making a kind of model that could be used to predict the future. The Maya city of Tayasal, which was ruled by the Itza people, has one of the creepiest examples. Friars from Spain met the Itza king around 1618. He told them something they will never forget. The Spaniards were told to come back later because he was talking about a certain cartoon. What happened next is really scary. After almost 80 years, in 1697 the Spanish took over Tayasal. It was during the exact cartoon the king had talked about. It sounds impossible, but it wasn't magic. The Maya thought that each cartoon had a design, and people behaved in a way that fit that pattern. This is why that's important. The Itza knew that bad things always happen when 8 Aha showed up. A long time ago, during the 8 Aha periods, big cities like Chichen Itza and Chakanputen were left empty. So when the cartoon came back, the Itza were already ready for bad things to happen. It turned out that their prediction came true. People got ready for bad things to happen, and they did. Spain even paid attention. They were aware of the omen and were making plans for their last attack when the cartoon turned. The Maya and the Spanish were both following a strange script that was written in the stars. But these cartoon predictions didn't just say that they would lose. In one part of the Chilambalam, it was written that during a certain cartoon, people from other countries came with a new god. That fit the time when the Spanish came and when Christianity spread. Those from Spain thought it was both scary and amazing. The Maya looked like they knew something was going to happen. From our point of view, it proved something amazing. These were not just wild guesses. These were real ways of telling time and believing, based on patterns that have been seen across generations. The Maya didn't think in a straight line. They had more than one thought. Things would go back to the way they were. It wasn't just history in the past. A picture of what would happen. A lot of people thought the world was going to end in 2012. People stocked up on food, quit their jobs, and waited for a disaster that the Maya were said to have seen coming. It didn't happen, of course. Talk of another date is going around though, in the midst of confusion and natural disasters. 2025. There is new language, a new way to understand the prophecy, and just the right amount of mystery to make people both scared and hopeful. Online reports say that a recently translated Maya prophecy says that 2025 will be a very big year of change. The language sounds powerful. The land will be covered in shadow. We'll look at ourselves in the mirror, then and only then will people start a great waking. In simple terms, it says that there will be disasters first, like war, floods and failure, and then spiritual rebirth. Some say it's all because of the way the planets will be lined up in early 2025. They will line up in the sky like 5 planets. A lot of people think that's just an accident, but some look deeper. People say this is more than just looking at the stars. For the Maya, this is the end of an age. It's like one door is closing and another is opening. That's something that's been said before. Around the year 2000, the 7 Maya predictions were talked about a lot in Latin America. Many of these ideas were about how the time of fear and selfishness will end, how climate change and wars will shake the world, and how people need to grow mentally, or you will be destroyed. But there's a catch. These weren't real predictions made by carvings in stone. They were new ideas that were based on old Maya beliefs and mixed with New Age beliefs. They were called wisdom. Yes, it is beautiful. Not really ancient. It looks like the same thing is going on now. The beautiful words such as shadows covering the earth are not from any writings from the past. They sound more like lines from the Chilambalam books. Those writings, which were made after Spain took over, did talk about death and rebirth. One part of the Chilambalam of but these writings were often used to talk about tragedies that happened in the past, like when the Spanish came, have not been used to guess future ones. If we look at how the Maya really saw the world, they did believe in big cycles. The first day of their long count calendar was in 3114 BCE. By December 2012, it had finished 13 Baktuns, each one about 394 years long. That's the reason 2012 was important. The Maya never said the world would end though. For them it was just the beginning of the 14th Baktun, which began on December 22, 2012, and will last until 2407 CE. There are still more than 380 years left in this run. To put it another way, 2025 is not a big new year. Still, the Maya used more than one turn to keep track of time. The solar calendar and the religious calendar are linked by the 52-year calendar round. Fun fact, the years 1973 to 2025 are exactly 52 years long. And 1973 was the year that New Age author Jose Arguelles started making the link between Maya time cycles and changes in the universe. Random event? Most likely. But that's the kind of pattern that keeps things mysterious. Next is Venus, which the Maya kept a close eye on. The Dresden Codex, which is one of their most advanced books that has been preserved, has a Venus table that can be used to guess when Venus will show up and connect it to bad signs, especially war. The Maya thought that if Venus rose in a certain spot in the sky, bad things were about to happen. They even said that epidemics would spread quickly and kill many people if thunder was heard in the south, or if there was a solar eclipse. These weren't exact times. They were natural signs that warned people. So could the way the planets line up in February 2025 be one of those signs? It's possible that someone would understand it that way. The Maya didn't mark 2025 as a special date though. That part, it looks like a new invention. Elder Maya people today have spoken out against all of this. Before 2012, leaders of the Guatemalan Maya held public events to deny end-of-the-world claims and tell everyone that their calendar never predicted the end, only renewal. They talked about going from the 4th sun to the 5th sun, which is an idea that comes from Aztec mythology and means struggle followed by understanding. Since then though, the world has felt unstable. There were fires, floods, wars, and plagues. It makes sense that people would look for trends. That's why the 2025 forecast feels so strong, even though it's made up of current fears and pieces of poetry. It shows a general worry that the world is changing and that we need something to believe in. This tells us more about ourselves than it does about the Maya though. Scholars like Matthew Restel and Amara Solari say that these prophecies show how people today project their fears onto cultures from the past. There must be answers. If only someone had seen this coming, we wouldn't be in such a state of chaos. The darkness that comes before the dawn is just what we need.